Ron Klain, I just want to go to you on this matter of a president in a grand jury. And that possibility now looms tonight very, very clearly, given what this investigation is about. And imagine a scenario in this grand jury where, as a lawyer representing this president, who you know has this tendency to lie about everything, who has a tendency to lie about tiny things, you know that you couldn't possibly send a client in there at a greater risk of a perjury charge than Donald Trump, just because of his habit of lying about anything. Do you send him in there with a little index card that he reads for every question, saying he invokes his rights under the Fifth Amendment not to incriminate himself?
Well, you know, Lawrence, it's hard to know where this ends, and it's hard to know what happens on that fateful day. And there's a lot that'll happen between now and then. But what we do know is if Donald Trump's presidency ends prematurely due to one of three I's, impeachment, indictment, or ignominious resignation, it will be because of the fourth I we heard about today, impaneling, the impaneling of this grand jury. There's nothing scarier to Donald Trump than having to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, with no help, no lawyer to cough in the background, wave signs, do anything to wave him off, the horrible lying he will do. And so you just can't imagine any ending for this that is in any way, shape, or form the preservation of the Trump presidency after he goes into that grand jury room.
Alex Whiting, talk about the grand jury room and how it is unlike any other judicial procedure that a witness can be in.
So, as you said, Lawrence, what makes it different is, as a witness and as a potential target in some cases, you are alone in the room. There's the prosecutor, the court reporter, transcribing every word you say, and the grand jurors, but you're not allowed to have your lawyer there. You can take breaks to go talk to your lawyer outside, but you are alone facing the questioning of the prosecutor and the grand jury, and everything you say is transcribed and is under oath. And as you said in your opening, you do not know what other witnesses have said, what other documents have revealed. You do not know what the prosecutor knows, and that puts you in a very difficult position, puts a lot of pressure on you to tell the truth, because that is your best defense, is to tell the truth. And as you say, that may be difficult if Donald Trump goes into that grand jury room.
And Alex, just one more thing about the grand jury. Tell us what you think it means in this investigation. I mean, let's look at it from the Trump perspective. And what is the most optimistic reading of what this grand jury means if you're looking at it as one of Donald Trump's lawyers? What would be the optimistic reading you'd give to the president about it?
So the optimistic reading is this. Look, it's obviously an important development. It's significant for the reasons that you've said. But it was also inevitable that there would be a grand jury impaneled in this investigation. It's impossible to do a complex federal investigation without a grand jury, because it is only through a grand jury that you can compel testimony and documents. You can subpoena them. You can't do it without the grand jury. So in an investigation like this, you are going to need to have a grand jury. It was going to happen. And so the optimistic reading of Trump's lawyers is, look, this is a step, but it does not necessarily mean that anybody is going to be charged, that we're going to get to anywhere. And it's possible, I don't know if it's very possible, but it's possible that at the end of the grand jury investigation, there will be no charges.
Mm-hmm. And the counter to that, Mika, the other side of that coin is the last very, very high-profile Washington investigation was of Hillary Clinton, and there was no grand jury because Hillary Clinton cooperated. She voluntarily talked to the FBI, submitted to that, and they were able to come to a finding that there was no crime here that was prosecutable in what they found, and they were able to do that without a grand jury.
That's right. But what we're talking about here, in contrast to what the investigation was of Hillary Clinton, was in Hillary Clinton's case, it was whether or not there was some kind of unintentional or intentional mishandling of classified information based on emails, which is a very complicated subject, and they found not that there was any intention there. But with Donald Trump, we have a much more complicated situation. We have law enforcement officials who may be called as witnesses to talk about Donald Trump firing the director of the FBI because, as he said in his own words, he was very concerned and taking a lot of heat in this Russia investigation. There's a lot of public record out there that suggests that we really have a very serious case for obstruction of justice.
Let's listen to what the president said about this investigation to his big rally audience tonight in West Virginia.
The Russia story is a total fabrication. It's just an excuse for the greatest loss in the history of American politics. That's all it is. Most people know there were no Russians in our campaign. There never were. We didn't win because of Russia. We won because of you. That I can tell you.
Ron Klain, there's an interesting dynamic going on now. There is a grand jury. They are out there. They are news consumers. Now, they've been asked to try to avoid consuming news about this, but it's pretty hard to do, to avoid consuming it. At some point, these grand jury members are going to hear the president say that what they're working on is a complete fabrication, it's fake, and there's nothing there. What effect does that have on grand jurors who think they're working on something important?
Yeah, I mean, I think your question implies the answer, which is it's going to further erode Trump's credibility on that day when he has to go before the grand jury. I mean, they're watching, to the extent they are violating their directions and watching TV, they're watching the president lie every day on television. That's not going to be helpful for his credibility when he goes in there. And, you know, Trump will be his own worst enemy. I mean, after all, this is a man who essentially confessed to obstruction of justice in response to questioning by Lester Holt on television. And with all due respect to Lester Holt, he is far less intimidating than a federal grand jury.
Oh,
and so,
I don't know,
you know,
Ron. I've been
he's
around
an
Lester
intimidating guy,
Holt, I got to tell you.
But, you know, look, the bottom line is he is a danger to himself, obviously a danger to the country, but a danger to himself when he's out there every day lying. He said there were no Russians in the Trump campaign. We know there were Russians in Trump Tower. His son emailed about Russians in Trump Tower. So he's not going to get away with this lying. And that lying, to the extent it bleeds into the grand jury room, totally undercuts whatever shred of credibility the man has left.
One of President Trump's lawyers, Ty Cobb, issued a statement tonight saying about this grand jury, saying we favor anything that accelerates Mr. Mueller's work and we remain committed to fully cooperating. Mr. Comey told the president at least 3 times that he's not under investigation, and we've heard nothing that would change that. The only concern at the White House is that this be done fast and fairly. And Alex Whiting, we have indeed heard things that would change that. Since Mr. Comey had those conversations with the president fired him, and we have every reason to believe that part of the investigation now is about the firing of James Comey, which comes after the fact of those statements, and is an investigation about possible obstruction of justice by the president.
Right. There's no question about that. And the White House knows that. Comey, in his testimony, made it very clear that he already had started thinking about that, about possible obstruction. And certainly after Comey was fired, it was clear that Mueller was taking that up. The Comey turned over his memos to Mueller. There is absolutely no question that Mueller is going to be looking at all the angles of the possible obstruction, and as Mika said, will be interviewing law enforcement officers to corroborate that. This is not a he said case, because there is a lot of corroboration of James Comey's testimony.
Yeah, Vox is reporting tonight that as many as 10 FBI officials might be involved as witnesses, including Comey. As many as 10 and possibly more of the nation's most senior law enforcement officials are likely to be questioned as part of the investigation into whether Trump committed obstruction of justice, according to 2 government investigators with firsthand knowledge of the matter. And Mika, that is something we have never seen before.
That's correct. This is really very stunning. When you think about how many law enforcement officials are involved in this, it's not just about getting rid of Comey. He had these conversations with his entire senior staff. There are a number of officials who had contemporaneous conversations with Comey, so it's not like he's making up a story after the fact or just for his congressional testimony. This is really troubling for Donald Trump, because all of these law enforcement officials will have unimpeachable integrity, and they will go before the grand jury and tell them exactly what they heard.
Alex, quickly before we go, when you have a client, different clients have to be handled differently in some situations. Criminal defense lawyers have difficult decisions to make about, do I put this client on the stand? And some of them you can't put on the stand, not so much because of the evidence, but because of the witness. The witness will be a very bad witness. Donald Trump strikes me as one of those people, and as his lawyer sending him into the grand jury, it's just hard to imagine sending him in with anything other than one of those little index cards with the Fifth Amendment printed on it.
I agree. It's impossible to imagine how you would keep him under control, how you could guide him, how you could instruct him to kind of follow clear answers and answer truthfully. And I think that we see that his strategy is to try to turn the tables on the investigation and to attack it. And what I would anticipate is that he would take the Fifth Amendment and continue to attack the investigation as illegitimate and try to block it at every turn, as he has on several occasions in the past. So I think he'll continue that strategy.
Alex Whiting, thank you for joining us.